G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/JustnoHOA. Now if you love me like I love you, I want you to smash that like button, sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy today's amazing content. Posted by user Chris C from RMNB, titled, The Most Insane HOA. Let me set the scene for you a little before I get into the actual transgressions that I need to complain about. This is going to be a rant because I just need to tell some people about this. I live in a pretty nice middle-class neighborhood, basically right outside of a large city in the western United States. It's a quote-unquote newer neighborhood in the grand scheme of things, and more houses are only just being built, evidenced by an unfinished cul-de-sac down the street from me. There is a big old lake that sits in the middle of the whole thing where recreational activities occur. A small shop-and-go store, and a bar. Those are the only three things that I would guess separate us from just being a purely residential area. Now, we obviously have an HOA, or I would not be here to complain. Said HOA is mandatory to join, and I was happy to do so as there are no regular monthly fees, which is something I have never experienced before. I thought that was a little strange, but soon found out why they have set it up that way. The head of our HOA is an absolutely psycho person. If he dealt massive quantities of cocaine and had murdered multiple people, I would not be surprised in the slightest. If you simply have your trash out in a slightly askew manner, he will fine you $10. I am not joking. It is the most petty crap I have ever experienced. I have received multiple $10 fines for supposed rule violations. He's the type of person that drives a gigantic lifted truck because he's obviously compensating for something. He open carries firearms. He wears flip-flops literally everywhere he goes, even in the winter. He once tried to pull over an actual police officer and detain them for supposed speeding. Him and the rest of his HOA buddies, who are all friends due to having a kid around the same age, all hang out in the aforementioned bar literally every single night like there's some sort of biker club and not a discount neighborhood watch. One day, I had the audacity to question their fining methods at the bi-monthly neighborhood meeting, and I was met with accusations that I must be a Russian, because this is how we do things here. I am living surrounded by insane people. This is not normal behavior, correct? I am not going insane, right? Screw the HOA. One word, audit. Publicly call for an audit of those fines. If the amount of fines don't add up, this guy is pocketing the small little ones that he dishes out, which is illegal. Glad you're here to state the obvious, guy. Join the board. Get some friends to join the board too. This person has no more authority than anyone else, except what the ownership has given him. This is what is underrated. Karen it up. You're simply running on the basis that you have received X fines for trash askew, so you would like to add to this. First action, look up Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Obviously, if the bar is the chosen location to meet, nothing against it, but you will personally call the police for speeding and public drunkenness if the people so much as think about driving from the bar. I mean, for an average citizen, it should be excusable, but for an HOA person? If you come into contact with a CCR that is violated, hold an official board meeting, where you detail why this is illegal and why this can land people in jail. Invite a lawyer, have questions like, so, if this gets put down without any change, it's an automatic lawsuit, right? Do you do pro bono work? Lobby for a noise ordinance. Publicly call it a micro-penis truck. That is what the kids call it today, right? Anyways, micropenis trucks are nice and all, but if they are over a certain amount of decibels, they should just receive fines for every day of operation. The idea is, most HOAs are bone dry and can easily be captured by yourself and a handful of friends. The HOA terrorist is living proof of that. So, dress up in your best Stepford wife outfit, put on those pearls, and go apply for the board, because you are a concerned woman. Getting a Karen haircut is obligatory. I feel for you, but this is one of the greatest stories I've read in a long time. OP replies, I have a handful more that would probably take another 4 posts to lay out, and I've only been living in this community for a little over a year. I didn't even add that he loves to ride around on his orange ATV, which he has somehow made street legal. He decided to explain to me how he did that, unprompted, and now it sounds like an angry swarm of bees is flying around our street. He may have told you his ATV is street legal, but I'd suspect his unprompted explanation is so people won't think they can report him to LE. I'd call it in anyway, anonymously, or at least stress to LE that your anonymity is crucial. Worst thing that happens is they look him over and don't cite him. If you haven't already, I'd set up indoor security cams that cover your exterior. Posted by user Stalin Plus Love, titled HOA unfairly fines my aunt for not shoveling her sidewalk. Note this was written 5 months ago. Since it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere and we're getting our fair share of snow, I have a story from my aunt. My aunt lives in a gated community in the Pacific Northwest. She's at a higher altitude, so she gets a bit of snow. She's a nice lady, very active, and always helps other people. Her HOA is a drinking club as she describes them, have a whole bunch of rules, some totally ridiculous, heavily enforced, and always changing. Usually when rules are changed, they get posted on some online community bulletin board from the days of dial-up. Also, they like to fine and shame people. My aunt never attended meetings because she has no time for drinking and cigarettes. As per usual, with a lot of bylaws, you have to clear the sidewalk in front of your house of snow and ice. My aunt, being the woman she is, and living in a 55-plus community, she always shovels her walk and salts it for ice. A couple years ago, there was a heavier than usual snowfall, maybe over 20 inches in the higher elevations, with some warm days, then freezing temperatures for a few days after. So first snowfall, she gets up early and shovels her sidewalk, and her walk, and sprinkles down some salt. It snows a few inches more, so in the later afternoon, she shovels the walk again and decides to salt again. She literally said she tossed a few handfuls of salt, and the neighbor across the street comes running out, demanding she stop salting, and it's a violation of HOA rules, whatever, crap. It seems that a no-salt rule was added to their book of the great HOA rules. Reasoning is that salt crystals are unsightly and posted on the unusable online bulletin board from 1999, which at this point, the online bulletin board had been replaced by an under-maintenance error page for the past few months. So there was no way the drunken HOA rule changes could be relayed to the commoners. Well, my aunt apologizes, gets a warning for the first time she salted, and a second for the handful of salt she applied in the second salting, and then gets another warning for not properly clearing the sidewalk. Well, my aunt left maybe a strip about 2 to 3 inches for about 2 feet on the edge of her sidewalk, which wasn't properly cleared of snow. Not a big deal, she made an excellent effort, but the HOA neighbor didn't think so. Next violation would be a fine. Also, she had to clean up all the rock salt with a broom. My aunt ended up getting the new HOA rules in writing from the HOA neighbor, which she read over and realized they only stated salt in the sidewalk snow shoveling rule, but nothing that blue salt free ice melt. Also was stated is that the sidewalk should stay free of ice at all times. Also, she read a bit deeper to learn that street and sidewalk cleaning is covered by the HOA twice a year or is needed. Instead of risking HOA wrath of fines and some public shaming, because now it's near impossible to prevent the sidewalk from freezing up, she decides she will challenge the vodka-induced reasoning of the HOA, and will use the blue, non-salt ice melt to keep her sidewalk ice-free. The next day, after an overnight snowfall, she heads to the local hardware store to buy some blue, non-salt ice melt. Strikes up a conversation with the shop owner about her issue, who recommends these blue ice melting pellets, and throws in a bag of clay kitty litter on the house so she can stick it to them idiots. That afternoon, the temp rises just above freezing, and there is a heavy wet snowfall of a few inches, which hits the ground wet, melts, and refreezes when temperatures go below freezing at nighttime. So instead of risking having a skating rink for a sidewalk, she clears the wet snow and then dumps a bunch of these blue ice melting pellets and a whole bunch of kitty litter. Overnight, it freezes, and the next day she has the most ice-free sidewalk in all of the neighborhood, and it's covered in ice melt pellets. Well, it rains that day, and her use of kitty litter and blue ice melt pellets don't go unnoticed by the HOA neighbor. That afternoon, she is fined by the HOA officer in charge of fines for breaking rule #vodka section stale cigarette smoke. She sees nothing wrong. The road is salted and sanded and looks like a mess, so her sidewalk doesn't look too bad or blue and grey speckled and ice-free. Then she gets a notice to clean up this salt, which she ignores because it's not salt she is using to de-ice her sidewalk, but blue salt-free ice melt pellets and clay kitty litter. Then that day it rained, then froze, and continued to rain, then snow, causing everything to be covered in ice and snow the next morning. It was a disaster. My aunt cleared the snow from her sidewalk and applied more blue pellets and kitty litter, which wasn't a task, because luckily she already had applied so much that there was already no ice on her sidewalk or snow. Everyone else in the neighborhood had to chip the underlayer of ice after they risked a horrific fall while clearing the top layer of snow. She then was fined again, while the neighbors had to actually walk in the messy street in some parts because sidewalks in some spots were unwalkable. Warnings and fines were given to other unsuspecting neighbors who couldn't attend the HOA booze meetings and had mistakenly used salt or had not chipped and cleared all the sidewalk ice in an acceptable amount of time. The next few days were blue skies and below freezing with ice everywhere. Sidewalks had been chipped, but iced up over time with a thin layer of slick ice called black ice. People were falling, and my aunt now had a couple rogue neighbors using all types of non-salt ice melt. One guy made a solution of brine and molasses, which he sprayed on and got great results. Others used sand, brine, non-salt ice melters, and even 15 gallons of wine, which turned to vinegar, was applied. The HOA's alcohol consumption probably increased as the officer fell on a patch of black ice out front of his home, breaking his elbow while returning from delivering fines, warnings, and general nastiness. Eventually, the weather returned to above freezing levels and rain, which washed away all the various ice-melting substances. The rogue neighbors gathered at my aunt's house enjoying tea and snacks. Amongst them was the man who used brine and molasses, who happened to have a license to practice law and was retired with nothing else better to do than to ruin the drunk, useless HOA at the next meeting. He then invited himself to the next meeting with a file folder of all the fines and warnings with a statement of dispute for each one. Also brought his tablet to prove the online bulletin board wasn't working, which helped the case that the HOA wasn't providing proper means of communication to the residents, which meant the residents could sign a petition to fire the standing HOA members and appoint an intern HOA till the election. My aunt was appointed treasurer, found the previous regime spent HOA funds at a liquor store, the retired lawyer president, who then went after the previous HOA for funds spent on booze, and they all lived happily ever after. The end. Kyanite says, a good story and well told. +1. OP replies, I actually phoned my aunt and got her to tell me the story in great detail. She enjoys it and still holds the treasury position. She said the HOA only really organizes neighborhood improvement projects and neighborhood events. Most of the stupid rules are gone and they haven't fined anybody since they took over. She said the HOA Christmas party was a blast, and they now spray all the sidewalks with an environmentally friendly, anti-ice solution of calcium carbonate and molasses. That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear someone's HOA nightmare had a happy ending. I'm afraid mine is going to put a lien on my house right now because I can't find someone to repave my driveway, and it has a hole that I can't fill in because the drain for the 6 surrounding houses is in my driveway, so all of the water flows into it. So I can't just paint this stuff on like I usually do, and it's been raining just about every day. Plus, I don't think I'm supposed to do my driveway without getting permission from the Department of Water Management due to said drain, which may be why no one will do my driveway. I'm just really frustrated, and I have a chronic pain condition, so I can literally do about one thing a week. I need to find the disgruntled about the HOA lawyer in my neighborhood, lol. There must be one. There are like 15,000 houses in my HOA. Gypsy Ganersky says, salt should be banned because it's bad for the sidewalk and dangerous for dogs to walk on, not because it's unsightly. Salt-free ice melt should be encouraged no matter how bad it looks. Salt is salt, not particularly harmful to dogs. Now, it getting stuck to their paws and causing the melt to refreeze is a problem. Also not only a problem only for salt. Most salt-free ice melt, however, is extremely harmful to dogs. You need to make sure to get specifically pet-friendly ice melts. They do make something called doggy booties, starting at around $4. Google doggy booties and view the shopping tab. PetSmart carries them among other dealers. Your woofer will love them. And you'll love the dog's reaction when they first wear them. Back in the day, 50 plus years ago, we had a female boxer. Winter came, we bundled her up well, used old baby shoes for her feet. Older siblings swiped my jacket to keep her warm, walked her down the street and past a local gas station. The owner was on the phone and his jaw dropped as he turned to follow my sis and our boxer. Leo Hat says, also, some places in the Pacific Northwest ban the use of salt because of the runoff into the streams. I know that W. wasn't allowed to use salt until major snow events completely shut down the Seattle metro area for like 3 days. I can't remember the year, but it was the same year that Mayor Nichols ordered the city's snow removal departments to clear the roads to his house before the rest of the city. Posted by user NerdLover2528, titled, You want the HOA to enforce the rules? I live in a small subdivision that has an HOA. You've all heard horror stories about HOAs, but this one is actually really relaxed in the compliance department. The HOA is still ran by the developer and the management is outsourced to a third-party company. So, no head of the HOA Karen that lives in the neighborhood constantly monitoring everything. We do, however, have a private Facebook neighborhood group. My neighbor is a complainer. He always complains about the ineffective HOA because people have installed sheds and above-ground pools. While all these things are discouraged, they are allowed with the ARC approval. Basically, email the management company a modification request with the specs and pictures, and they approve it. So all the stuff he is complaining about has been likely approved by the HOA management company. I don't think my neighbor is aware of this because he complains about it every few months like clockwork. So earlier this month, I noticed my neighbor and a few other houses in my neighborhood had put out political yard signs in their yards. According to the HOA covenants, this is prohibited and there is no approval process. It's just not allowed. So I emailed the guy at the management company that handles our HOA to let him know. He emailed everyone that day to remind them that yard signs are prohibited and gave everyone 7 days to remove them before they get a violation. My neighbor posted last week about receiving a violation in the mail. He was ticked. But hey, he wanted an effective HOA, right? Posted by user ChinaMex123, titled, Secret Board Meetings and HOA Ignoring CCRs and Replacing Them with Fines. For 20 years, the old HOA board just let people park on the streets because there's not enough parking. But new board is making up rules and fines instead of following CCRs, and having board meetings in secret, and forcing a meeting of members when it's currently a misdemeanor to meet in groups due to COVID in WA state. I have already written a cease and desist and a demand for all the fees to be refunded to owners. They don't care. I'm not rich enough to hire an attorney. I need help ASAP. Whatever you know to help, I'm all ears. Yeah, no. This is attorney territory. This is the kind of stuff lawyers live for. I can guarantee that they would take this case. Maybe get a group of homeowners in the HOA together to help pay for a lawyer. I wonder if a lawyer would work on contingency, or a public attorney, since we have WA state laws that govern as well. Well, you could ask. I do have one other suggestion though. Document all the things. Emails, paperwork, phone calls, and text messages, all of these will help. Get a copy of the CCRs as well. If you have proof, they won't be able to do shit against you. Lawyers will only work for a percentage if they think they'll recover money, but if you sue the HOA with intent of getting money, you're literally just suing yourself, and they'll just raise assessments on you to fill that hole. Much better to just pay someone to send the cease and desist letters, citing where they are blatantly breaking the law and violating contract. HOAs operate under contract law more than anything else. Much better to start collecting evidence of their malfeasance to show your neighbors so you can gather the vote necessary to get rid of the HOA board. HOA meetings literally cannot legally be secret. They have to be open to the public, by which I mean the people paying dues, because I've been shouted at before by shills and day-holes about how HOA meetings totally aren't open to the general public. Duh, freak nuts. We aren't talking about the general public here. They have to keep records of meetings, they have to provide those records on request, they cannot just enforce rules that aren't in the docs, etc, etc, etc. Hard to vote if the meetings are secret and there is no ballots. HOAs are legally required to do that stuff, but that's not the same as they can't do that, they obviously are doing it. Carcamouth78 says, if I had to hazard a guess, I'd bet your HOA is breaking a number of laws. While some states allow working board members, it's relatively new, not every state allows it, and your 20-plus-year-old is definitely too old to have it included. Look for a section that discusses meetings, notice, and quorum. If the board is ignoring what's written, absolutely everything they're doing is illegal. For example, I had to post a 30-day notice for board meetings. For an association meeting, I had to give 90 days notice by mail and post a 3x5 notice at the entrances. The CC&R bylaws can't be superseded by rules. Again, there might be language that explains how rules are added, or there might not. If it doesn't appear, you'll have to look into state law. Either way, adding anything requires notice, an association vote, and opportunity to contest. Your best bet is to get together with neighbors and chip in to hire a lawyer. You could try to pull off an emergency vote to replace the board, but you'll need to put in a lot of work, find volunteers equally willing, and you'll still probably wind up in court. Breakfast Beers says, boards are typically allowed to make additional rules and regulations, so long as they aren't in conflict with the CCRs. Also, board meetings are also typically held without notifying members. In fact, most CCRs explicitly state that members aren't even permitted at the board meetings unless explicitly invited. Nothing you've described here, except expecting a member meeting in violation of state orders due to COVID, is out of the ordinary. OP replies, so if their CCRs say you're supposed to warn with 48 hours, then tow a vehicle for a violation, they can just ignore that and put in rules to fine $100? Our CCRs say all meetings must be announced to homeowners, and even if a private board meeting is called to discuss liability issues, they have to still announce the meeting and have rules around that. No, they cannot just ignore written parts of the contract. Thank you. And OP says, I tried calling the Secretary of State. They referred me to Attorney General. Attorney General says they only take cases that affect WA state versus private cases. I called District Attorney and mentioned extortion as a company is obtaining money without legal merit and threatening injury via liens on homes, and they said to file a police report first. I think police will tell me it's just a civil matter. Laws are written so heavily in favor of HOAs, many private lawyers won't even consider cases from individuals. Update. Thank you everyone for your help. You gave me courage to do this. I got the meeting cancelled. I emailed every public office official and either got canned responses or misinformation on where to go next. Called Attorney General, sent reports with the help of a few friends to the Governor's complaint line on COVID meetings, emailed every major news outlet, found a way to slip in a Facebook post to the community, found some emails of the residents that participated in last year's vote, and emailed them directly. Threatened the sheriff coming as they hired a food truck to bring in even more people, filed a $10,000 small claims court case, sent them a document outlining all penalties for large gatherings, told them that they are discriminating against people with disabilities, who especially can't go to public gatherings. I have muscular dystrophy, and if I get COVID, I'm screwed. They sent out a Facebook post that blamed me, saying I'd reported them and they didn't want to fine. Didn't say anything about the health and well-being of the community at risk, so now they must restart their process. So much for paying a lawyer. Have egg on their face again, sent out mails to everyone again, figure out how to get people on Zoom, explain why they have a suit for $10,000, and give me the frickin' documents to review that I've been asking for more than 45 days, and they've been withholding. They had said I couldn't see them until after the vote. What? The law says they must be available for viewing at all times, reg business hours. They've refused. I'll now have more time to put flyers on cars or homes that these crazy new rules would affect most. They won't answer my questions on the secret board meetings though. I did ask for the minutes. Maybe we save it for court? Then I get an email saying they'd like to negotiate. Great. My small claims court will have a court-appointed mediator, no lawyers allowed. I'm going to eat her alive in there. Now, how does one calculate damages? Woohoo! You're courageous and tenacious, and you're an example of so many of us who feel like we can't fight bands of a-holes like these. Bravo. Thank you so much for the support. I'm learning so much from this experience, but I have to give the credit back to the Reddit community. I was truly motivated and encouraged by everyone's participation, and especially the funny comments, because laughing is the best medicine. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying, Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.